You think you know someone, you think you understand the heart that sleeps beside you, until one day, one ordinary day, you realize you didn't know a thing. My name's David. I'm 53. I work with my hands, I fix things for a living, and I've always believed in honesty, in doing what's right, and in the kind of love that lasts a lifetime, and the story I'm about to tell you. It's the kind of story that shakes the very foundation of who you are. I was supposed to be on a business trip that week, Chicago. Pack my bag, kiss Melissa goodbye, promise to call when I landed. That was the plan. That was until a quiet thought nudged me, David. Maybe don't go. It was simple. Harmless. A whisper I didn't question. Maybe I missed her too much. Maybe I missed Ethan. Maybe I just wanted to feel needed again, so I didn't board the plane. I packed lightly, drove 6 hours back home, heart full of hope, planning a small surprise for the two people I loved most in this world. As I drove, I thought about the little things, the smell of fresh bread baking, the way Ethan would leave his socks on the stairs, Melissa's humming in the kitchen, the quiet comfort of our dog greeting me at the door. Every small memory made my chest tighten with longing and anticipation. By the time I reached the edge of town, night had fallen. The streetlights cast long shadows. And the wind whispered through the trees, brushing the car as if warning me. The porch light was on, glowing like a beacon. I imagined her reaction, Ethan running into my arms, and for a brief moment, everything felt perfect. I turned the key slowly. The door creaked. Everything looked normal, the living room, the photos, the furniture. But the air felt different. Heavy. Charged with something I couldn't yet name. I paused, letting my eyes scan the room. Every picture, every frame, every corner of the house told a story, our story, but something about the atmosphere made me uneasy. I shook my head. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the long drive was playing tricks on me, and yet, deep down, I felt it, that quiet sense of dread that comes right before life changes forever. I didn't know it yet, but this night, this decision to come home early, was the moment everything would unravel. The life I thought I knew. The trust I'd held for years. The love I'd believed was unshakable. Was about to be tested in ways I never imagined, and the truth. The truth would be far more devastating than I could ever prepare for. The house smelled the same, lavender and candle wax, familiar, safe. And yet somehow wrong. Every corner, every frame on the wall, whispered memories I thought I owned. But that night, something in the air felt heavier. The kind of heaviness that crawls over your chest, making it impossible to breathe fully. I crept toward the living room, expecting to see Melissa bustling around, maybe a cup of tea on the counter, Ethan's small toy truck waiting near the stairs. Everything looked normal at first glance. And then I heard it, a laugh, low. Deep. Not hers alone. I froze, my mind tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a show on TV. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I was just tired. But the sound came again, unmistakable, real, too close. Two voices. Hers and a man's. I stepped closer, each footfall echoing like a warning. The closer I got, the clearer it became. They were sitting together, talking quietly at first, and then laughing. And then. Her hand rested on his arm, the same hand that had rested in mine for years. I wanted to stop, to turn around, to pretend I hadn't seen anything. But some part of me, some part that still believed in fairness and truth, pushed me forward. I saw them kiss. And for a moment, time stopped. I didn't move. Couldn't. My mind raced, my chest burned, and I felt an emptiness I'd never known before. Betrayal doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it smiles. And sometimes, it takes your heart while pretending to be love. I tried to make sense of it. The late nights she'd claimed were for classes, the mysterious errands, the distant phone calls. Everything suddenly fell into place, and yet it felt impossibly surreal. How could the woman I loved, the woman I trusted completely, hide this? How could she live a life with someone else while I thought I was coming home to the family I built? I wanted to scream. To ask why. To make her stop. But no words came. My throat was dry, my hands cold, and the room felt like it was closing in, and that's when I realized, the life I thought I had returned to didn't exist anymore. Not the life I knew. Not the love I thought was real. It had been replaced. The question burned in my chest, how long had this been going on, and the answer. I feared I wasn't ready to hear. Melissa saw me before I could speak, the color drained from her face, and for the first time in years, she looked small. The man she had been laughing with just moments ago, he stood up quickly, mumbling something, and bolted out the door. I could hear his footsteps fading into the night, leaving a hollow silence that settled over the room. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of the rain against the windows and my own breathing. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words felt heavy in my throat. My chest burned with a mix of anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. How long? I finally managed to whisper. She flinched. Her hands trembled slightly. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, searching for words that might fix what could not be fixed. I don't know, she said at last, her voice breaking. I was lonely. You were always gone. I didn't think you'd come back so soon. A lie. Every word. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make her feel the weight of what she had done, but I didn't. I just stood there, watching the person I loved crumble under the weight of her own choices. I looked at the ring on her finger, the one I had saved months to buy, polished and shining with hope and love. The same ring that had promised forever, now lying on a hand that had been part of a life built on deception. My heart felt like it had been hollowed out. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I'm leaving, Melissa, I said, my voice quiet but firm. This time, for real. She opened her mouth again, but I turned and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. As if the floor itself remembered all the years I had given to this house, to this marriage, to a love that had betrayed me. Before I reached the car, I glanced back. She was still standing there, frozen, her hands clenching and unclenching. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. Betrayal isn't just a single act. It's a slow unraveling of trust, a rewriting of the life you thought you knew. As the door clicked behind me, the rain hit my face like 1,000 tiny needles. And yet, even through the pain, a single thought lingered. I was alive, and that was something she could never take away. I didn't drive far that night. I just parked near the old gas station on Willow Street, the one that never closes. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering occasionally, casting long shadows on the wet pavement. I sat there for hours, staring at the droplets racing down the windshield, feeling as though each one carried a fragment of my broken trust. My phone buzzed every few minutes. Melissa's name flashed across the screen again and again. I didn't answer. I couldn't. What was there left to say? How could I even begin to speak when my world had been rewritten without my consent? I kept thinking about the early years of our marriage, the laughter, the small routines, the late-night talks that made me feel alive. And now, those memories felt like fragile glass, each one threatening to shatter under the weight of her betrayal. People talk about heartbreak like it's a single moment. But it isn't. Heartbreak is a slow, creeping thing. It's the accumulation of small, unnoticed cracks in the foundation until one day, the whole structure collapses. And that night, I felt the collapse in every fiber of my being. I thought about Ethan, sleeping upstairs, unaware that the person he called Dad was standing on the edge of a life that no longer felt real. I thought about the small joys we had shared, pancake mornings, trips to the park, bedtime stories that ended with soft laughter. And I realized something I hadn't admitted before: love isn't always enough to protect you from betrayal. I remembered something my father once told me when I was a boy: son, the world will knock you down. The important thing isn't whether you fall, it's whether you get back up. That thought kept me sitting there in the cold car, drenched in silence and rain, long after midnight. I didn't move. I didn't think about sleep. I didn't think about what I would do tomorrow. All I knew was that the man I had been, the man who believed in love, trust, and family, had died a little that night, and yet, a part of me, a stubborn, angry, alive part of me, refused to let it stay that way. The night stretched on. Every passing car, every distant shout, every flicker of the gas station lights felt like a reminder. I couldn't go back to the world I thought I knew. Tomorrow, I would have to face it, the lies, the betrayal, the truth. But tonight, I let myself feel it all. The pain, the emptiness, the shock. And somewhere deep down, I promised myself, this was not the end. The next morning, I didn't go home. Not yet. My mind was still a storm, spinning in circles, replaying the images of last night, the laughter, the hand on his arm, the look in her eyes. I needed clarity. I needed someone who could help me make sense of what had just happened. I called Tom, my older brother. He'd always been a quiet voice of reason, a steady presence in a world that often felt chaotic. "David," he said after the first ring, "what's wrong? You sound off." I exhaled slowly. "I need help, Tom. Something happened last night. Something I can't. I don't know how to handle it alone." He didn't ask questions. He just said, "Come over. Let's talk." I drove to his place. The city waking up around me. Streetlights giving way to the soft glow of morning, the smell of wet asphalt and coffee filling the air. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. When I arrived, Tom greeted me with a hug that felt like it anchored me to reality. We sat in his small kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint clatter of utensils, the smell of brewed coffee, ordinary things that suddenly felt like lifelines. I told him everything. The trip I canceled, the moment I came home early, the voices I heard, the laughter I never wanted to hear again. Every word tasted bitter on my tongue, but I spoke them anyway. Tom listened quietly, nodding, never interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back, his fingers steepled together. "David. This is serious," he said finally. "But you need to do more than just react. You need evidence. You need to understand what's really going on before you confront her again. And you need to protect yourself." I nodded slowly. He was right. I felt the first hint of resolve begin to settle in me. I couldn't let confusion and anger guide my next steps. I had to be careful. I had to be smart. We spent the morning talking, mapping out what I knew, what I suspected, and what I still had to uncover. Names, dates, errands, phone calls, tiny breadcrumbs that might reveal the bigger picture. Each detail I remembered seemed insignificant on its own, but when strung together, they painted a story I wasn't ready to fully see. By the time I left Tom's house, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean, but my thoughts were anything but. I was determined. I was alive. And I was done being a spectator in the life that someone else had rewritten. The first step was simple: observe. Collect the truth. And when the time came, confront it all. Over the following days, I became someone I never thought I'd be, a detective in my own marriage. I started keeping a small notebook, nothing elaborate, just dates and times. When Melissa said she had a meeting, I'd note it. When she claimed to be running errands, I'd write down how long she was gone. The bakery where she said she had morning meetings, I drove past one Tuesday. Closed for renovations, a sign said. Had been for 3 weeks. The small coffee shop where she claimed to run errands, I stopped in on Thursday. The barista knew me, greeted me warmly, but when I casually mentioned my wife's regular visits, she looked confused. "I don't think I've seen her here, Mr. Patterson." Each small discovery was like a pinprick, tiny but accumulating into something that hurt more than I wanted to acknowledge. I began to notice her car wasn't always where she said it would be. I'd drive past the grocery store parking lot during her shopping trips, no sign of our vehicle. But parked outside an unfamiliar apartment complex downtown. There it was, twice in 1 week. Clara, our neighbor, stopped me one afternoon while I was checking the mail. "David, I hope everything's alright with you and Melissa," she said carefully, her eyes kind but knowing. "What do you mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. She hesitated. I've seen her leaving at odd times. And once, there was a man dropping her off late at night while you were supposedly away. I don't mean to pry, but you deserve to know if something's not right," I thanked her, my stomach sinking. So it wasn't just my imagination. Others had seen it too. That evening, I did something I'm not proud of but felt necessary. When Melissa was in the shower, I checked her phone. The messages were carefully deleted, but phone logs don't lie. Calls to an unknown number, dozens of them. At times when she told me she was busy with work or errands, I wrote down the number. Later, I traced it through a reverse lookup service. It belonged to someone named Marcus Jennings. I didn't recognize the name, but a quick search showed he worked at the community college where Melissa claimed to be taking evening classes. The pieces were coming together, a mosaic of deception I could no longer ignore. She wasn't taking classes. She was meeting him. I decided I needed to see it with my own eyes one more time, not out of doubt, but to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. Wednesday evening, Melissa kissed Ethan goodnight and told me she had a study group session until 9. I waited 15 minutes after she left, then followed. She didn't go to the college. Instead, she drove to the edge of town, to a small, discreet hotel I'd passed 100 times but never paid attention to, the Riverside Inn. I parked across the street, watching as she walked through the entrance with confidence, like she'd done this many times before. Room 214. I saw her pause outside it, smooth her hair, take a breath, then knock softly. The door opened, and there he was, Marcus Jennings, I presumed. Tall, younger than me, with an easy smile that made my blood boil. She stepped inside, and the door closed. I sat in my car for 2 hours, watching the lit window, seeing shadows move behind the curtains. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to storm up there, to bang on that door and demand answers. But Tom's voice echoed in my head, "You need evidence. Stay calm. Document everything." So I took photos. The hotel exterior, her car in the lot, the timestamp on my phone showing when she arrived and, eventually, when she left at 10:47 p.m., nearly 2 hours later than she'd promised to be home. When I returned home, she was already there, humming in the kitchen, pouring herself tea as if nothing had happened. "How was your study group?" I asked. Keeping my voice neutral. "Oh, productive," she said with a smile that once would have warmed my heart. Now it just felt like another lie. "We're really making progress on our project." I nodded and excused myself, retreating to the garage where I added tonight's observations to my notebook. The evidence was mounting, undeniable and damning, but I still wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I needed to understand everything, how long this had been going on, how serious it was, what she was planning. Only then would I have the full picture. The breaking point came 2 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon that started like any other. Melissa announced she needed to run some errands and would be gone for a few hours. Ethan was at a friend's house for a playdate. I told her I'd be working in the garage, fixing Mrs. Henderson's broken chair, but after she left, I made a decision. I drove to the Riverside Inn again, my heart pounding. This time, I didn't just observe from the parking lot. I walked into the lobby, nodded at the desk clerk, and headed for the stairs as if I belonged there. Room 214 was on the second floor. I stood outside it, my hand raised to knock, my breath coming in short gasps. What was I doing? Was I ready for this? Before I could decide, I heard voices inside, her voice, his voice, laughter that cut through me like glass. And then words that made my blood run cold. "I love you," Melissa said, clear as day. I never thought I could feel this way again. "What about David?" the man's voice asked. A pause. Then, "David is safe. Comfortable. But he's not you. He doesn't make me feel alive the way you do, Marcus." I stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. The woman I'd built a life with, the mother of my child, the person I'd trusted with everything, she was in there, telling another man she loved him, dismissing me as nothing more than safe and comfortable. Something inside me snapped. I didn't knock. I turned and walked back down the stairs, through the lobby, into the blinding afternoon sunlight. My vision blurred, whether from rage or tears, I couldn't tell. Maybe both. I drove home in a daze, my mind replaying her words over and over. He doesn't make me feel alive. As if our entire marriage, our son, our life together meant nothing compared to whatever thrill this Marcus offered. When I got home, I went straight to the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase. I started packing, slowly at first, then faster, more frantically. Clothes, toiletries, important documents. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay here, couldn't pretend everything was fine when my world had just shattered. Melissa came home an hour later, cheerful and unsuspecting. She found me in the bedroom, suitcase half packed on the bed. "David?" Her voice was uncertain. "What's going on? Are you going somewhere?" I turned to face her, and whatever she saw in my expression made her take a step back. "I know," I said simply. "I know about Marcus. I know about the hotel. I know about all of it." Melissa, the color drained from her face. "David, Don't," I interrupted, holding up my hand. "Don't insult me with more lies. I heard you today. Room 214. I heard you tell him you love him. I heard you say I don't make you feel alive." She sank onto the edge of the bed, her hands covering her face. "Oh God. David, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" My voice was rising now, all the pain and anger of the past weeks finally breaking through. "Explain how you've been living a double life. Explain how you've been lying to me for months. Explain how you could do this to our family, to Ethan." "It's not what you think," she whispered, but even she seemed to know how hollow that sounded. "Then what is it, Melissa? Help me understand how the woman I loved, the woman I trusted completely, could betray me like this." The conversation that followed was brutal and necessary. Melissa tried at first to minimize it. It was just emotional, she'd been lonely, it didn't mean anything. But I had the evidence, the dates, the phone records, the witness accounts. There was no minimizing the truth. Finally, she broke down completely. "It started 6 months ago," she admitted through tears. "He was my instructor for that photography class I mentioned. We started talking, and he made me feel seen. Like I mattered as more than just a wife and mother." "You always mattered," I said, my voice breaking. "You were everything to me, but I lost myself. David. In being your wife, Ethan's mother, in managing the house and your schedules. I forgot who Melissa was. And Marcus," he reminded me, "so you had an affair." The words tasted like poison. She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. "I never meant for it to go this far. I kept telling myself I'd end it, but every time I tried, I couldn't. I felt torn between two lives, two versions of myself." "Did you ever think about what this would do to me? To Ethan?" "Every day," she whispered. "The guilt was eating me alive. But I was too much of a coward to stop, and too much of a coward to tell you." I looked at this woman I'd shared 15 years with, and realized I was staring at a stranger. The Melissa I'd married would never have done this. Or maybe she would have, and I'd just been too blind to see it. "I need time," I finally said. "I can't be here right now. I can't look at you without seeing him, without hearing those words you said." "Where will you go?" "Tom's place. I'll figure out the rest later." "What about Ethan?" Her voice cracked with genuine fear now. "Ethan deserves the truth, but not today. Today, he just needs to know his father loves him and nothing will change that. As for the rest..." I zipped up my suitcase. "We'll figure it out. Through lawyers, probably." "David, please." "No, Melissa. You made your choice when you walked into that hotel room the first time. And the second. And the 20th. You chose him over us, over everything we built. Now I'm making my choice. I'm choosing to walk away with whatever dignity I have left. I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. At the threshold, I paused and looked back one last time. She was sitting on our bed, her whole body shaking with sobs, and I felt nothing. The love I'd carried for her for so many years had been replaced by a hollow emptiness. Goodbye, Melissa. Tom's guest room became my sanctuary for the next few weeks. He never asked for details beyond what I offered, just provided a safe space for me to process everything. I met with a lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen who'd handled countless divorce cases. She listened to my story, reviewed my evidence, and nodded grimly. "You have a strong case," she said. "Documented infidelity, evidence of deception. If you want custody of Ethan, I want what's best for Ethan," I interrupted. "Not revenge. Just fairness. Fair is what we'll aim for." The hardest part was telling our son. Melissa and I agreed to do it together, presenting a united front despite the chasm between us. We sat Ethan down in our living room, my former living room, and tried to explain in age-appropriate terms that Mommy and Daddy still loved him very much, but we'd be living in different houses for a while. "Is it because of me?" he asked, his 8-year-old eyes wide with worry. "No, buddy," I said, pulling him into a hug. "This is never, ever about you. This is about grown-up stuff that has nothing to do with how much we love you. Will I still see you both, every single day if I have anything to say about it?" I promised. Melissa was crying silently. And I wondered if she was finally grasping the full weight of what she'd destroyed. 6 months have passed since that Saturday afternoon. The divorce is moving forward, amicable enough given the circumstances. Melissa ended things with Marcus, or so she claims. I don't really care either way anymore. I found a small apartment across town, close enough to Ethan's school that he can stay with me during my custody days without disrupting his routine. The place is modest but comfortable, and slowly, I'm making it feel like home. Work has been my refuge. There's something honest about fixing broken things, about taking something damaged and making it whole again. If only marriages were as simple as broken furniture. Ethan is adjusting better than I feared. Kids are resilient in ways adults forget how to be. He knows something changed between his parents, but he's secure in knowing he's loved. That's what matters most. As for me, I'm healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing nonetheless. The betrayal still stings when I let myself think about it too long, but I'm learning to focus forward instead of backward. Tom told me something wise last week. "David, you didn't just lose a wife. You also found yourself again. The man who won't accept being someone's safe second choice. The man who values honesty and integrity enough to walk away when they're absent. That's not nothing." He's right. In the ashes of my marriage, I've rediscovered parts of myself I'd forgotten: my strength, my worth, my refusal to settle for less than I deserve. I've started taking woodworking classes on Thursday evenings, something I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. I've reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with over the years. I've even started dating again, cautiously, taking things slow. Life goes on. That's what I've learned. Even after the worst betrayal, even when your world crumbles, life finds a way to continue. The sun still rises. Work still needs doing. Your son still needs his father, and somewhere in that continuation, you find yourself again, different than before, scarred but stronger, wiser for the pain you've endured. I think about Melissa sometimes, usually late at night when sleep won't come. I wonder if she regrets her choices, if she understands what she threw away for a few stolen moments of feeling alive. But mostly, I just feel sad for her, sad that she was so lost she couldn't find her way back to us, sad that she chose the easy thrill over the hard work of real love. But that's her story to carry now, not mine. Mine is about rebuilding. About being the father Ethan deserves. About living with honesty and integrity, even when others don't. About proving to myself that betrayal doesn't define me, how I respond to it does, and I'm responding by choosing life. By choosing growth. By choosing to believe that somewhere down the road, there's a happiness I haven't imagined yet, built on foundations of truth instead of lies. You think you know someone, until you don't, but in the end, the most important person to know is yourself, and I'm finally getting reacquainted.